is this?
On that hazy early morning, when I first learned I'm your darling, now I'm fumbling through the hallway to your room. I thought I'd found you. The post came with no letters, the petals fell like feathers as your waters drew up anew. Oblivion, infinite undone. Children on the bones where we lay, you lie, say you're okay. Children are the bones where we pray. I've never known what to say. A lone swing set in the breezes, the saddest thing I've seen since that night I rescued you from the dark. Could have stayed in their heart. Children on the bones where we lay, you lie, say you're okay. Children are the bones where we pray. I've never known what to
Hey, good morning, Monticello staff. Good to see you. I'm not seeing any of you, but it's really good to be with you this morning. I want to thank Sarah Walk right off the bat that invited me to be a part of this morning. Every time I'm with Sarah, I realize my heart is 3 times smaller than hers, and it kind of stinks, but it is what it is. I just love her, and I'm grateful to have her as a friend, and I know you are grateful to have her on staff as well. Teachers and administrators, coaches, everybody in the school system really holds a special place in my heart. And I'm not just blowing sunshine. It's just true. I had 3 siblings that were teachers, and my wife has been teaching for 35 years. She teaches 3rd grade here in Annandale. So that's where I live. I'm in Annandale. I'll give you a chance to see my family a little bit. I've been married to this beautiful blonde girl named Becky for 34 years. We have 2 sons. Brady's married to Natalie over on the left hand side, and they have 2 daughters, Nora and Taya. And then our son Robbie in the middle. He is married to Amber. And Robbie and Amber live in Nashville, and Brady and Natalie live in Shoreview. And just love being a family. I'm blessed to have incredible people in my life like them. Um, my wife just left a little bit ago for 3rd grade, and she has kind of a similar day as you. She has some speakers coming in and has some self development stuff, and then gets the afternoon off to work in her classroom. So she's pretty fired up about that. And so early this morning, about 5 in the morning, we got up and she goes, "It's Friday. Thank goodness it's Friday. I just needed a day where I could just sit back, take in some things, and feel good about my day ahead." And she loves her class. And Annandale has been together since the very beginning of the school year for elementary school. And so she's loved that. And I know it's a little bit different for a lot of you in different various capacities that you have. So she went downstairs and to get ready for her day, and she goes, "No." And I said, "What's going on?" She goes, "Come down here." All excited about her day, and I went down. Her entire lower level is flooded. And so after I get to have time with you today, I get to shop back the rest of the day because it's a finished basement and it's brutal. So it kind of stinks. And I thought there's probably worse things. I mean, I can't think of any right now, but there's probably worse things than having a flooded basement. Um, a little bit about me, just some context. I am a speaker, I'm a writer, I'm an entrepreneur. I was just mentioning to Gavin and to Sarah that it sounds better than it is. I've started 6 companies. Some of them have gone really well, some of them I've given funerals to. And so I'm just kind of a risk taker and try different things. And so that's really kind of what my life is like, freedom and flexibility. I love it, and I just love learning. And so again, to be able to be asked to be a part of something like this, it matters to me. And so I'm humbled to be able to share with you just for about 20 more minutes and talk through a couple things with you. One of the connections I have with Sarah is through the Bounce Back Project. And some of you probably are aware of what the Bounce Back Project is. I just want to talk to you about that for a little bit. The tagline is promoting health through happiness. And I do social media management for them, do some of their website work and their communications. And they asked me to come on board a few years ago because they had this idea that originated really in Buffalo Hospital in the line of clinic. And then they partnered with Monticello. And so now Monticello Hospital and clinics have taken over that responsibility. And so what they wanted to do is get the word out about Bounce Back Project because they sensed incredible stress and actually some tragedy that took place a number of years ago in Buffalo. And because of that, they realized that if they don't get not their act together, you understand what I'm saying, if they weren't getting healthy physically and mentally, they were not going to be effective and efficient and be able to give to other people and serve people the way they wanted to. And so they just started being really intentional about taking care of one another. And then it kind of bled out into the community. They said, "Hey, well, we have people in our families that are struggling and people all throughout our community that are struggling. And we got to figure out how can we be on the offense with this and not just hope it gets better, but actually do something about it." So really, it's a collaborative of physicians, nurses, healthcare leaders, and community members. And it's really just one purpose: to impact lives of individuals, communities, and organizations by promoting health through happiness. And I remember when I was coming on board to be a part of that, I thought health through happiness. It just sounded too flowery and kind of fluffy. And I thought that's not really who I am. I'm a hockey player. It just doesn't sound right. But as I spent time around that table with a bunch of doctors and nurses every single week thinking through all of this, it started to make sense to me. And they just said, we carry so many burdens and so much weight on our shoulders and our minds and our hearts, and it weighs us down so much that it steals so many of our joy moments. And so there's neurons and things that are going through our mind and through our body that allow us to be healthy and happy. And when we become happy and have joy, well, then it affects our physical body and our mind. And studies were done. We talked about all of that. And so we really just started putting the work into it and making sure we had tools and opportunities for people to get healthy physically and mentally and spiritually, just a bunch of different ways. And so there's some tools that we utilize, and I'm just going to encourage you to go to the Bounce Back Project website at some point and start looking at some of these tools. We talk about random acts of kindness, 3 good things, gratitude, social connections, mindfulness and self-care and purpose. And we really kind of focus in on some of these things. And it can be overwhelming looking at all of them, but we always just say, if you can just take little baby steps, if you can just make tiny adjustments in your day, iterations, if you would, just a little bit, maybe in the morning or in the evening or even in the afternoon or on a break, all of a sudden you're going to start noticing some things. Your mind and heart start changing, and you start forming some habits that are really healthy and good. And you become more loving, more caring, more empathetic, more generous. It is what it is. And so you have a choice, and I have a choice too every single day. It's my one and only life. This is it. I get one shot at it, and so do you. So I want to live fully and completely every single day. So when I wake up, I have to think through, how do I want to live and how do I want to love today? And I know you have that as teachers. It's really challenging, isn't it? Because you want to live and love the way that you're accustomed to, but now it kind of got knocked off balance, and now you have to figure out different ways of doing it. And because of that, because I live with it every single day with my wife, who's exhausted and overwhelmed, and she has long days and then long nights as well, but she is sold out to loving these kids and loving her fellow staff members. And so she just grinds. And once in a while, I have to remind her, and I just take her chin and I lift it up and I look in her eyes and I just say, you are loved and valued, and you need to take care of yourself a little bit here, because these people need your whole heart. And if you're just having everything consumed by stress and busyness and such, they're not going to get the real Becky Stromme. They're almost going to get a robotic form of you. And it's just not good. It's not what people need. And so that's kind of one of the things that you're going to have to kind of tell yourself and tell one another, that you're loved and valued to one another. You're loved as who you are and not as you should be, especially in these times. But when this pandemic is done, it's the same thing. We don't just go back and slide into the same habits that we have had before. I think when you kind of go to some of these different things like this, some of these different tools, you're going to start doing some things and seeing some changes. And so for the rest of your life, the Bounce Back Project wants to give you tools and opportunities to make a difference, not only in your own life and the life of your family and loved ones, but people around you and complete strangers as well. One of the things I just want to mention to you, I think of this all the time, and even as you're beginning your day, and then as you're heading into the weekend, I kind of look at 2 different ways of looking at life. Resilience, I was just going to mention this. Resilience is really kind of the key, right, for the Bounce Back Project. It's just being able to bounce back from things in life. And so all of those things kind of fall under this umbrella of recovering quickly with difficulties and tough times in our life. It's just resilience. And so I look at my life oftentimes as rear view, mirror, and windshield. Rear view, mirror, and windshield. And every time you get into your vehicle, in fact, you're going to get in your vehicle a little bit later today. What I want you to do is think through this. When you get in your car or truck, I want you to look up and realize your rear view mirror is really small, and it's small for a reason, right? Your windshield is large, and it's large for a reason, because you're supposed to be looking forward at all times. There's a lot to see and there's a lot going on. That's what you're supposed to be focused on. And I think sometimes for teachers and a lot of other people, the rear view mirror, when they look back at all the tough times that are happening in their life, whether it's in their profession or in their family or in their personal life, sometimes we carry some guilt, or we carry some shame, or we carry some disappointment. And all of a sudden your rear view mirror starts becoming larger and larger and larger, because you're constantly looking back at what could have been or what was or what I should have tried. And it starts taking over your windshield, and that's not the way it's supposed to be. There's nothing wrong with having a rear view mirror. It's really important to have it because it gives you some perspective of where you've come from, where you've been, and things you can learn from. But from me to you, and I love you and I don't even know who you are, I want you to be looking forward this year. If you have a colleague that says, man, this has really been tough, and you say, yeah, it has been tough, but I'm seeing some things going forward that are really good and really clear. And I'm going to focus on that. Let's all try to focus on that. Encourage one another to do some things like that. You probably have people in your life, family members or friends, or maybe some colleagues that you know for a fact that their rear view mirror is massive because they're just focusing on the challenges of life and the things that were really tough. And maybe this is going to be the day, maybe this is going to be the month in the year that you help kind of right that ship and start kind of having them focus on the windshield, because there's a bunch of great things coming forward here and I can't wait for those. The other thing I want to share here quickly is that you can't give what you don't have. You just can't. You can't give what you don't have. And my wife tries to do it all of the time. And one of the things that she loves to do, she loves to cross country ski. And so once in a while, I'll say, you need to get out and ski. She goes, it's freezing. I said, go for 7 minutes. Just get out there because you've got to do some things that you love. And I'm a really, really simple guy. I'm not that smart. I got 15 on the ACT test. I'm not happy about that. I was kicked out of both colleges that I attended. Don't tell my mom. She still thinks I graduated with honors, which stinks. And every time I speak, I spoke before the pandemic at Virginia Tech to their entrepreneurial school. So I flew out there and spoke to them. I was on stage for about an hour and 20 minutes talking about life and the different companies that I had started and the things that I'm learning. And these college students are the brightest of the brightest, right? They're all around the world coming to Virginia Tech because they're all engineers and smart. All of them got 30 or 35 on the ACT, trust me. And the biggest takeaway for most people when they hear me speak, even today, honestly, because my life is golden, the biggest takeaway is if that guy there up on that stage can make it in life, I totally can make it in life. And so I want to just share this with you. So I have to think through basic and simple things. And here's what I look at. And I do this to my wife sometimes. I say, here's your life. And you have people in your life, Becky, that need you. And they come into your classroom. You have a third grader that comes in, has a bunch of troubles, and you have to pour your life in. And you have like little drips. You have nothing to give. And so if you're not receiving anything, honestly, if you're not receiving some life from whatever it might be, solitude, quiet time, reading, skiing, hiking, praying, whatever it might be, if you're not getting it, you have nothing to give. But all of a sudden now my wife wakes up in the morning and she has time on her own and does whatever she wants to do. And she'll go skiing once in a while and she'll go on Pinterest and she'll be on Shutterfly and she gets filled up. And all of a sudden that third grader comes into her class that has some major needs in her life or his life. And she's able to pour out and give some to that third grader. But then another third grader comes up and says, hey, Mrs. Stromme, I have some stuff too. And then she starts pouring into that third grader. But all of a sudden she has a friend on staff that comes in and says, my word, my husband is driving me nuts. She's like, oh boy, I know what that's like. I need way more. I need to go skiing for an hour and a half probably to take care of stuff like that. And then she has enough to give to her coworkers and enough to give to her husband and enough to give to the cashier at Holiday gas station. But I'm telling you that there's going to be people coming in her life and in your life every single day. And some of you are ragged. You're just going nonstop and you're exhausted. You need to figure out some of you have incredible hobbies that you probably haven't done for a year. Some of you haven't done for 10 years. You love knitting. I hate knitting, but maybe you like knitting. Maybe you like reading, whatever it might be, and you haven't done it. And you're trying to give to other people what you don't have. You can't do that. You can't give what you don't have. And so I implore you, this weekend, maybe write it, put it in your phone, whatever it might be, and schedule it ahead of time. Says, next Tuesday at 6:30, I'm going for a run. Or next Friday night, I'm meeting up with two of my girlfriends who I haven't seen forever, and we're just going to sit and talk about the past, a little bit of rear view stuff, but we're going to talk about what we're excited about with the windshield. Maybe that's you. Maybe you need to do it. Not maybe, I bet you do need to do that. Kind of the last thing I want to talk about a little bit with you is an interesting thing that took place not too long ago. And I called it Who Lowered the Sky? It's one of my most popular blog posts that I've ever written. And it wasn't really focused on teachers, but when I speak about it, when I think about it, it really sets the stage for what teachers go through. A few years ago, the US Pheasant Championships were held down in Prior Lake. And I'm a hunter. I love duck hunting, pheasant hunting, deer hunting, and all of that. And I have an English Springer Spaniel. And I decided to go down to this. Apparently, it's an incredible spectacle. They allowed people to come and watch the pheasant championships. And I didn't know what that looked like or what that was going to feel like. And so I got my dog in the car and we went down and drove down to Prior Lake. And here is my pooch right here. She's great. Sad news, just buried her just a few weeks ago, but an amazing life from beginning to end, almost 15 years of life. And her name is Addie. And so then we pulled up and there's vehicles everywhere, thousands of people. And you got a kind of a picture what it's like. It was kind of like the gladiator days, like, and like you went to US Bank Stadium. And so the crowd would sit up kind of in a bowl all around, thousands of people, and you look down at about the size of a football field, and it was just grass and rushes and tall trees, whatever it was just kind of set up to be able to plant pheasants on this 100-yard kind of area. And there were 5 hunters that were part of the competition, the 5 best pheasant hunters in the United States. And a referee came out. And again, we're talking to people next to us. We thought, I've never been to anything like this. It was just so wild, just looking down at this field. Referee comes out, kind of explains some of the rules, and it said every hunter gets 5 shotgun shells, and the quickest that they can get without missing 5 pheasants somewhere in that 100-yard, whatever it was, then they win. And so sure enough, the whistle blows, and a dog comes out and a hunter comes out of this entrance, and they walk out on the field, and the dog starts digging in, kind of pounces up, and a pheasant gets up, and the hunter shoots it and drops the pheasant in one shot. Goes a little bit further, about 10 more yards, another pheasant gets up, hunter shoots it, drops the pheasant, 2 for 2. It goes a little bit further, and sure enough, the dog gets up another pheasant, and the hunter shoots a 3 for 3. And so I look at my dog and I'm like, Addie, are you seeing what these dogs are doing? They're incredible. And I'm sure she's thinking, have you noticed this hunter never misses? And I'm like, okay, let's move on. And so then the next bird that gets up, the hunter shoots and misses. And the pheasant just keeps flying. And the unique thing happened. His dog started chasing after the pheasant. And the hunter didn't want the dog to do that, right? Because it has to go and try to get another pheasant before his time is up. And so the hunter is blowing the whistle, but the dog is so fixated on this pheasant getting away and couldn't stand the fact that this pheasant's getting away. So the dog is chasing the pheasant, and the pheasant is flying as fast as it can, hovering above the ground, and the dog is chasing after the pheasant. So the poor pheasant's going, and the crowd, thousands of people are watching this. And this is way more exciting than watching a guy shoot pheasants. We're watching this dog, and the dog is closing in on the pheasant and gets right underneath it. And the dog, and I'm not joking, jumps up in the air and grabs the pheasant out of the air in its mouth and brings it back to the hunter. By that time, the time had already gone up. So the hunter only got 3 pheasants. So the next hunter comes up, and he goes out and gets all 5 pheasants, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the crowd cheered, and it was exciting. It was just like at a football game. It was wild. The next hunter comes out, and the very first shot, he misses. And just like the previous hunter earlier on, the dog starts chasing the pheasant, and the hunter's blowing his whistle like, get back here, we have 4 more pheasants to get. And the dog's like, skip it, I'm going, I'm gonna get this pheasant because that's my job. And so sure enough, that pheasant is flying as fast as it can. It's just fluttering above the ground, and the dog is chasing after the pheasant. So the crowd starts kind of rising up because this is pretty interesting. And closer and closer and closer and closer. And sure enough, dog gets close enough, jumps up in the air, grabs the pheasant out of the air and brings it back to the hunter. And again, by this time, that hunter, 0 pheasants. 3 more hunters came out, and this happened one more time where a dog went and chased after the pheasant and got it. we really couldn't understand it. In the crowd, we're kind of talking, thinking it was just strange how this would happen. So after it was done, they kind of had like a game fair afterward. We could go down and you could meet the hunters, and everybody had their dogs, and dogs could sniff one another, and you could buy products and do different things and chat with different people that sold products. And some of the hunters would kind of do a little talk here and there. It was really fascinating and fun to be at. And I saw off to the side, I saw the referee that was part of this whole thing. And I walked over to him and I said, "Excuse me, sir, I got a quick question for you." And he goes, "Yeah, so anything." I said, "This was an incredible sight to behold. It was so fun. I never even knew this kind of thing existed." And the people around me, a lot of them, it was their first time ever seeing this as well. But thousands of people coming to just watch pheasant hunters. I said, "But as we were talking after this whole thing was done, there's one question that we have, and maybe I don't know if you've heard this question or not before, but when the pheasants are flying away, right? They're flying from the dog, and the dog's chasing after the pheasants." And the referees just started smiling because he knew exactly what my question was. And maybe you have the same question too, but we all had the same question. He goes, "Go ahead and ask the question." I said, "Why didn't the pheasant just fly higher? Why did it just try to fly faster? Because the dog was going to jump up and catch it." He goes, "That's a great question." And I said, "I know. So what's the answer?" He goes, "What you have to realize is that ever since birth, when these pheasants were hatched, they've been raised on a pheasant farm, and they've all been raised under a 5-foot net. And you've seen those pheasant farms maybe when you've driven by." He goes, "So for every pheasant that you've seen today, they think the sky is 5 feet high. That's it. There's nothing in their mind or in their puny little heart that allows them to think that they can fly any higher than 5 feet, because that's all they're accustomed to is 5-foot flying." So they can't get away from the dog. They can't get away from a lot of kind of predators because that's what they're raised in. So I think of you watching this today, your entire responsibility, I think, is to be a freedom fighter for your students and for your staff and for your players, whoever you come into contact with. Your responsibility and opportunity, I would say, is to remove netting that has been placed on lots of young kids and junior high students and high school students and perhaps even coworkers. And sometimes that net gets put on because of a tough living situation or parenting that has gone awry, or tragedies or physical ailments or mental stress or whatever it could be. But some of your kids and some of your coworkers, because of even challenging marriages or job situations that haven't gone well, or being discouraged and never built into or had life breathed into any of them, a lot of the people around you are flying in a 5-foot net, and they have no idea that they can fly higher and accomplish more and see things that they've never seen before. And I think that's your responsibility all day long, on next Tuesday and Wednesday, whatever it might be. Start thinking through, how do I remove nets and obstacles from people that I'm working with, students that I'm serving, so that they can fly higher and see some things that they've never experienced before. And maybe that's you too. Maybe people have put a 5-foot net over you. I'm not sure. But maybe you need to tell someone and say, "Hey, what this guy talked about today, I think I've been flying low to the ground for so long in my work. I've just become accustomed to kind of doing the same thing time and time again. Whether it works or not, it just doesn't feel very exciting and right at this point." Well, I encourage you to just fly higher. Now that sounds kind of fluffy, doesn't it? But I'm just being honest based on that story. I encourage you to fly higher, because when you start flying higher, you're going to start seeing things, and you're going to want other people to fly higher too and experience some incredible things in life, in your work and outside of your work as well. So again, I mean, that's all I got, right? We're closing up here. And so I don't know who lowered the sky in your life, or I don't know who lowered the sky in the life of any of your fellow teachers in administration or in your students, but let's just be the rest of the year where we just lift nets up and let people soar. So thank you so much for listening. Thanks for all that you do, because it matters till eternity. It just does. Thanks for loving people well and living the best life that you can. Enjoy the rest of your day, taking in some really important things that you can, and enjoy your afternoon, taking care of yourself and whatever you need to do. And have an amazing weekend and a holiday on Monday. Bless you all. Thanks again. Take care.